So today is a special day because we're doing two things. We're doing the finger meditation tool meditation, as well as we'll have a brief break at the end of that after I read a blessing for us all. A brief break, and then we'll move into our poetry potluck. And that's Lars's wonderful suggestion. So we'll see, and we'll have time together in this way. So it's my privilege to introduce Lars Howlett. And now I don't often feel he needs introducing, but maybe it's nice as more and more people join us to remind people that he's on the Veritas faculty. He's also a certified Labyrinth facilitator as well. And he's a leading expert in the building and design and placement of labyrinths and placement of sacred space around labyrinths as well, because when we're placing labyrinths in the ground, that as many of you know, it's a very special place. It needs to be discerned. There's a lot of discernment in going into that skill. And I know Robert Frey's on here, and I want to make sure that people know that Lars Howlett has done a 3-year apprenticeship with Robert, and Robert very generously gave Lars his tools and his techniques and all his knowledge that he had. And so Lars Howlett carries that tradition and knowledge and expertise forward as well. So Lars, please come on board here and guide us.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to be here with everyone today. Today is a big day for so many reasons. And along with the summer solstice eve, tomorrow is the longest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere and the shortest day in the Southern Hemisphere. Today is also June 19th, which is Juneteenth, which is the day that General Gordon Granger rode into Galveston, Texas, and announced to the enslaved Texans, 250,000, that they were free. And what is shocking is that this was 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation that Abraham Lincoln gave. So this is a huge moment of African-American independence, and something that has been celebrated in the, I think it's 155 years now since that day, and now with even more awareness due to the recent tragedies and the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and others recently that have brought, the awareness of Black Lives Matter into our community. And I wanted to take this moment to affirm that Black Lives Matter to myself and to Veritas. I realize that we can and must do more to support equity and inclusion in our events, workshops, and gatherings. And we need to address the systemic racism and implicit bias in ourselves and our institutions. Only together can we evolve as a Labyrinth community and a world and be of better service to everyone on this planet. I've been working personally on creating 3 different worksheets to support diversity, equity, and inclusion in our community. One would be how to create more accessible and inclusive labyrinths by design. Another on how to create more inclusive events. And a third about hosting diverse group walks and facilitating these walks. So I look to post those on our Facebook group and Veritas and the Labyrinth Society, and then also it will be included in the resources, the PDF that will be available on the Veritas homepage. It's also Pride Week here in San Francisco and all over the country. So we also wanted to make mention of Pride Week for the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and other identifying members of our community. And we can begin to enter into our meditation, holding all these people and ways of life in our community. So if you have your finger labyrinth nearby, and bring it to your lap or your table, your surface. And I'd like to share an opening story, which is a Zen parable that is unknown author, one that has been passed through time, through generations. There once was a farmer whose horse ran away. Upon hearing the news, his neighbors came to visit. Such bad fortune, they said with sympathy. Maybe, the farmer replied. The next morning, the horse returned, bringing with it 3 other wild horses. What great fortune, the neighbors exclaimed. Maybe, replied the old man. The following day, the farmer's son tried to ride one of the untamed horses. He was thrown off and broke his leg. The son would forever limp. What terrible fortune, the neighbors cried. Maybe, answered the farmer. Then the next morning, the army came through the farmer's village to draft young, able-bodied men for the war. Seeing his son's limp, they passed him by. The neighbors congratulated the farmer. What wonderful fortune, they said. Maybe, said the farmer. Maybe. And now a quote from Shantideva, who was an 8th century Indian Buddhist scholar. Where would I find enough leather to cover the entire surface of the earth? But with leather soles beneath my feet, it's as if the whole world has been covered. Likewise, it's not possible for me to restrain the external course of things. But should I restrain this mind of mine, what would be the need to restrain all else? And then Tamara Levitt shares this reflection. What Shantideva is saying is, we don't often have control over what happens in life, but we do have some control over our response. Rather than letting our resistance and discomfort derail us, we can train so that instead of having to cover the earth with leather each time the road becomes painful, we can instead work on toughening the soles of our own feet so that we're more resistant to it. This is the path and how we experience peace. So the focus I have for today for us as a community is resilience. And I shared the opening story because it really strikes me as this challenge of not getting knocked off balance by the world or by our friends or our neighbors. And one of the Buddhist teachings that, not only is suffering temporary, and that we should be careful not to attach to suffering, but also happiness and joy is temporary, and that we should be careful not to attach ourselves to happiness and joy. So it's interesting in the story for me, thinking that we don't want to attach too much to the negativity, but we also don't want to attach too much to the happiness. And really just to maintain our own center is our opportunity to really, create change. And in the quote from Shantideva about the whole earth, could we cover the whole earth in leather? That might make it easier for our life, if we could soften the entire world, but we can't soften the whole world. So if we could soften the soles of our shoes and walk more lightly on the earth, then, perhaps we don't need to, or we can't, since it's impossible to cover the world in that way. So really we can work on our own response. And that's how we gain resilience, is being able to navigate those challenges and moments of joy as well, and navigate the uncharted waters through change in both ways. And so today for our walk, I'll invite us to consider how we can further our resilience for ourselves in our community. And in doing that, how can we be of better service to each other? You know, if we can look at our own responsibility and our own way of being in the world, then that can then affect how we, you know, affect the world. So, and actually not trying to change the world and changing ourselves, we will change the world through changing our own selves. So with your finger labyrinth here, we can begin with some breaths. Maybe placing your finger at the entrance and then breathing in, circumnavigate clockwise, breathing in 1/3 of the circumference and breathing out 2/3 of the circumference, and breathing in, breathing out, and then continuing with your own breath at your own pace. Begin a 10-minute free open meditation with music, and then we will come back together for a discussion following the finger walk. The journey is yours. So you can slowly bring yourself back to the room, to your body. The music was by Destiny Muhammad, song entitled I Am. And we're kind of sitting together today thinking about resilience and how we can further our own resilience in this time. It's really a test, it's really a challenge, it's an endurance, physically, mentally, emotionally, for all of us, and this idea of staying on the path and finding peace on the path, no matter what surrounds us, and bringing peace to the path, bringing it in ourselves, in our hearts, and furthering it in our spaces, and being honest with ourselves about where we're creating conflict and how we're unconsciously furthering tension and conflict and traditions that are unuseful or hurtful or destructive. And what is our responsibility? What is our personal responsibility? It's easy to look around and react to others, but can we really look at ourselves and really look to who we are and where we are and see how we can grow, especially in this time, in this moment? I know there was a lot of optimism that even though we were going through this together, that in this pause that we would not go back to the way life was. And then it was kind of shocking to feel like in some ways we came out of it even more violent and suffering than we were, in the weeks before it. But it's going to take time, and it's going to take all of us to grow and further our evolution as a community and as a society. And I love the Labyrinth as a tool for doing that, for self-reflection. Many people see the Labyrinth as a mirror, and talk about it as a mirror of ourselves and a mirror of our community and how we walk and share the path in some ways, but then have our own individual experience. And really the Labyrinth walk is what we make of it, no matter what happens on the Labyrinth or who shows up or who doesn't show up. Okay, well, we can move to Lauren Artress.
Good. Well, thank you, Lars. Thank you. And it's wonderful to hear the reflections on resilience. It's certainly a quality that we need right now. And I think we're discovering it in our own ways, and we have all the challenges facing us. We also have to keep in mind that there's been some really positive things. And the fact that the worldwide protests are happening for Black Lives Matter is a huge step that we're all doing together. And that's so important. The other is that there has been in the United States a couple good things. For instance, just for Pride Week, the fact that gay and lesbian and trans people no longer lose their job just because of who they are. And that has happened this week, and that was a surprise, even such a surprise that it's sort of gotten lost in the shuffle. Another is the DACA ruling that 700,000 young people can have their status and stay in this country. And that's, again, another major victory. And hard fought. And here it is. It pays off for sure. So I'd like to bring this to a close, this part of it. We're moving on to our poetry potluck. And, but just to pull this together, one of the things I was thinking about when Lars initiated the theme of resiliency, there's a wonderful, wonderful book called Life Prayers, 365 Blessings and Affirmations to Celebrate the Human Journey. And this that I want to read to you is under solidarity and justice. And this is a blessing. And so we'll be ending this segment with this blessing. And here it is. So take a moment, just breathe in to let yourself kind of let these words wash over you. May our eyes remain open even in the face of tragedy. May our eyes remain open even in the face of tragedy. May we not become disheartened. May we find in the dissolution of our apathy and denial the cup of the broken heart. May we discover the gift of the fire burning in the inner chamber of our being, burning great and bright enough to transform any poison. May we offer the power of our sorrow to the service of something greater than ourselves. May our guilt not rise up to form yet another defensive wall. May the suffering purify and not paralyze us. May we endure. May sorrow bond us and not separate us. May we realize the greatness of our sorrow and not run from its touch or its flame. May clarity be our ally and wisdom our support. May our wrath be cleansing, cutting through confusion of denial and greed. May we not be afraid to see or speak our truth. May the bleakness of the wasteland be dispelled. May the soul's journey be revealed and the true hunger fed. May we be forgiven for what we have forgotten and blessed with the remembrance of who we truly are. And I think of this day, June 19th, Juneteenth. That's what we have forgotten. And maybe we be blessed with remembrance of that day, the day of freedom. So thank you all. Thank you, Lars. Wonderful.
Thank you, Lauren. That was a beautiful blessing.
Thank you.
And everyone who shared and everyone who been commenting in the chat and just everyone who's present, you know, part of it's just showing up, and we really appreciate you being here with all of us together. Mm-hmm. And thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate you being here, and hope to see you next week.